It's a pleasure seeing you all on the Heritage Week celebrations conducted by the Center of Excellence Department of Sri Shankarlal Sundarbai Shashun Jain College, and I'm your host Sai Shruti. Starting from 25th, we have successfully completed three very interesting sessions on the Heritage Week celebration series. Do check them out on our YouTube channel. Prayer is the most powerful way to worship and feel the presence of the divine. Let us now pray and invoke the blessings of the Almighty. I request Kirtana Guhan to sing the Jain prayer Navakar Mantra along with a short kriti, as today is the auspicious festival of Diyas, Kartikeya Deepam.
Namo Ariyantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Vajayanam, Namo Loye Savasamunam, Yesu Panchanamukaru, Sarva Pavapanasanu, Mangalanam Che Sarvesam. Paramam Havai Mangalam, Paramam Havai Mangalam. Pradoshanayaka Parameshwara, Brihadishwara Shiva Paratpara. Pradoshanayaka Parameshwara, Brihadishwara Shiva Paratpara. Karunakara Rudra Natanakara, Karunakara Rudra Natanakara, Kripakara Shri Bhavasagara, Kripakara Shri Bhavasagara. Prabhu Shanayaka Parameshwara, Brihadishwara Shiva Paratpara. Vaidishwara Shiva Chandrasekhara, Vishveshwara Shri Parameshwara. Vaidishwara Shiva Chandrasekhara, Vishveshwara Shri Parameshwara. Vimaladara Gauri Shankara, Vimaladara Gauri Shankara, Sarveshwara Shri Sadashiva, Sarveshwara Shri Sadashiva. Prabhu Shanayaka Parameshwara, Brihadishwara Shiva Paratpara, Shiva Paratpara, Shiva Paratpara, Shiva Paratpara.
That was a blissful start to the event. Moving on, I now request Dr. Rajshri Vasudevan Ma'am, Director of the CEO Department, to welcome our guests and the gallery.
Good day to everyone present here and listening in to our session today. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha and wishes for the auspicious occasion of Kartike Deepam. Just as Kartike Deepam lights our lives, we hope and pray that we are able to find a light at the end of this long tunnel of the pandemic and become happy and blissful once more. With the blessings of our Secretary, Shri Abhay Shishrimal Jain, and Associate Secretary Shri Ashok Kumar Mehta, and the support of our Principal, Dr. S. Padmavati, Vice Principal Dr. Rukmani, the staff and students of Sri Shankarlal Sundarbai Shasun Jain College for Women, the Center of Excellence, Art and Culture, and the Heritage Club have together come on this common platform to create awareness about our culture and heritage of India, particularly this time it's Tamil Nadu. We have had some very interesting sessions for the past few days, and now we are on to something equally interesting by a very dynamic person, Dr. Srimati Padmapriya Bhaskaran. So it is my pleasure. It is my pleasure to welcome our guest today, Srimati Padmapriya Bhaskaran, who is a woman of many parts. She is a blogger, she's a heritage enthusiast. She is also in charge of Sanitation First of the Tamil Nadu chapter. Of course, the details will be given by our interns as an intro to her. I would like to share here something about the importance of history and geography in our lives. Very often, we leave it behind in school. We abandon it for different reasons. Sometimes it's boring in school as part of social studies. But you'll be surprised to see that whenever you're asked to fill even the most important form, the first things that they ask you is your name, your parentage, your date of birth, all historical aspects of your personality. And then they go on to your address, which is actually your geography. So, just like our secretary, Sri Abhayji, keeps telling us that we must reach out to the community to which we belong, the community which we are part of. It has to be an outreach to them. We decided to have an entire session on the birth and history of T.Nagar. I'm sure all of you will find it very interesting, and the history will reveal many aspects which you took very much for granted. So we also look forward to your interaction by way of questions, which you can post on our chat box. So now over to Mrs. Padma Priya Bhaskaran, and looking forward to a great session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for the warm welcome. I now request Ms. Ananta Padmaja to introduce our chief guest.
Namaste. Srimati Padmapriya Bhaskaran is a cost and management accountant by training with master's degree in business administration and global health program management. She has worked in senior management roles in top international organizations, including the University of Washington and British Council. She currently heads an UK-based NGO and has been awarded the Rotary Vocational Service Excellence Award in 2014. She founded the Alayam Kundin Trust in 2011, which she carries out several heritage documentation and cultural cartographic projects. She has been blogging at Alayam Kundin, a blog with over 1.7 million viewers, and is passionate about creating awareness on lesser known heritage sites. For the 2.5 years, she researched heritage sites along the Coombe River to bring respect and visibility to it. This study resulted in a publication titled Gods of the Holy Kuam in 2017. Her second book, Padal Perum Parandaman Alayangal, aimed to create pasurams for lesser known Vaishnavite shrines. She conducted heritage walks and speaks on various heritage topics. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Ananta Padmaja. The Nagar, commonly known as T.Nagar, is a very affluent commercial and residential neighborhood in Chennai. T.Nagar is one of the city's major central and business district and also known for its street shopping, as you will find hawkers on every pavement peddling everything right from wigs to fidget spinners, selfie sticks, and also Bondi Bazaar, which is the hub of women clothing, jewelry, and accessories. Today's session is all about the birth and evolution of T.Nagar, which stands as one of the most important places in Chennai. I request Srimati Padmapriya Bhaskaran, ma'am, to take over the event.
Thank you so much, Sai Shruti and Dr. Rajshri ma'am. Thank you so much for involving me in the heritage activities of Shashan Jain College over the last 3 years. And it's been a pleasure to be associated with your college and with the very well informed, very well interested students over the years. And I've thoroughly enjoyed conducting heritage walks around West Mambalam for the students. And this is the third year running. Unfortunately, in the month of August, we could not have the heritage walk as we normally do, but it's my pleasure to speak today about the birth and the evolution of T.Nagar, which I think it's very important as people who have to kind of come every day to T.Nagar to go to college. And for someone like me who has lived all my life here, I was born here and I lived 50 years of my life in this place. So it's very close to my heart and a complete joy to be speaking about the birth and evolution of Nagar. So if you give me a moment, I will start sharing my presentation and then we can chat. In this particular presentation, I have tried to not talk about the obvious, the things that you already know. I've tried to keep it at a minimum. So we'll only be talking about those little unknown, lesser known facts about the creation and evolution of T.Nagar. Of course, happy to answer questions in the end if it relates to anything that has not been covered in the presentation also. Right. So when we say birth of T.Nagar, what do we actually mean? When Francis Day and Andrew Cohen chose that plot of land between the Kuam River and the Bay of Bengal to construct the Fort St. George and to do transactions there, the commercial activities of trading in cloth between India and UK, the city of Madras only consisted of Fort St. George. Then little by little, as they grew in power, as they became more influential with the local governments, they, through firmans, they attached several villages that were around Fort St. George, and then they wove the fabric of T.Nagar together. But even, the foundation of the city of Madras was started in 1639. But even in the beginning of the 20th century, the Land's End, if you might say, was up to Mount Road. So if you look at this map here, which is from 1909, you would find this is a map of the city of Madras, and then you would find there is a semicircular kind of water body to the left of the map, which says Long Tank. And then right next to it is Chengalpet district. What does this actually mean? It just means that, you know, with Nungambakam on one end and Saidapet on the other, there was only water in between. So the land's end was actually T.Nagar. The T.Nagar signal that you would be aware of is up to where the land was. After that, it was all water covering the entire area that you currently call T.Nagar and West Mambalam. And then it stretched all the way up to Nungambakam. So there were actually, this Long Tank was made up of two portions. So there was the Mylapore tank and there was the Nungambakam tank. And together it was called Long Tank. I think this picture is even more clear because we've just culled out the water bodies from the previous map. And then you will see that this Long Tank, you see Mount Road is Land's End, and Alayaman Koil, which now we call Alayaman Koil, was actually Alayaman Koil because it was right next to the water body. It was called Alayaman Koil. On the other end, somewhere near Valluvar Kotam Lake area, Tank Bund Road, there was another temple called the Yerikarai Mariamman temple, which actually was on the banks of the Long Tank. And similarly, you have the Lakeview Road, you have the lake area in Nungambakam where the Padma Seshadri school is, where and then you have Valluvar Kotam, you have Loyola College. All these places that you today talk about as landmarks did not exist at that time. So up to the early 1920s, you would only find that there was just water here. Mambalam was a part of Saidapet, which was the headquarters of Chengalpet district. And the collector office is where the Nandanam Arts College is currently. And Mambalam at that time was only a part of Saidapet. And this is a picture of the old Mambalam at that time. Mambalam was a completely weaving village. It was a Telugu-speaking Reddy village. And people here were only practicing kalamkari. You know, they were doing kalamkari work in cotton cloth. And so this was the village of Mambalam at that point in time, which I can say is the current Metupalayam area, which you have, you know, after Postal Colony, between Saidapet and Postal Colony, you know, that portion was the actual Mambalam village. And even now, if you were to go to Srinivasa Theatre, you would find that the place around Srinivasa Theatre is still called Reddy Kuppam. So there was a Reddy Zamindar who was managing this particular village. And what you see in the picture is one of the frontier deities of the Mambalam village. Mambalam, having been a village, it has 8 frontier deities, each for one for each direction. And this particular one is near Kashi Vishwanatha Koil, and you see a group of people as part of one of my heritage walks looking at that frontier deity. And right next to her, you would see there is a Telugu inscription as well, which kind of says that is one of the frontiers of Mambalam village. So this is how Mambalam was. And in 1910-1911, the first railway track that connected Madras, the city of Madras, to Kanchipuram was started. So the train started running between Madras and Kanchipuram, and the Mambalam railway station was created. And that is when more people from outside of Madras started coming into Mambalam and then settling down there, because they were looking for jobs and they started moving in, especially cooks and priests from Kumbakonam and Tanjavur and all that. They came to Mambalam and they settled around the station road, you know, around that area. They started settling down. And then at that time, what had happened was, in the city of Madras, if you were to look at the first census of city of Madras was conducted in the year 1871, wherein the population was 398,000 people. But by the time, once the train traffic started and more people started coming into the city, what happened was it grew very rapidly to 527,000 by the 1920s. And so there was a very acute shortage of housing in the city. And so what the Justice Party government at that point in time, actually what had happened is, in 1916, the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms had allowed the local parties to participate in the elections for Madras presidency. In 1920, the Justice Party, which was originally started as the South India Liberal Foundation. So South India Liberal Association was started by these three gentlemen. So Nadesa Mudaliar, who was a medical doctor, who was running a hostel for non-Brahmin students in Triplicane. So in Triplicane, because at that time, what the general feeling was that Brahmins were given priorities, or they were already occupying key positions both in politics as well as in education. So there was this movement that was starting, wherein people from other communities who had been successful in educating themselves, they wanted to create similar opportunities for members of their own community. So Nadesa Mudaliar started a free hostel, allowing people from other parts of Tamil Nadu to come and stay in Madras free of cost. He used to give them food, and he used to give them a place to stay, and then they could study here. So he was doing that. And then there was Sir Pitti Tyagaraja Chetty. Pitti Tyagaraja Chetty was a lawyer, and he was a lawyer and also a corporator, and he was also very keen in promoting people of other communities into jobs and into education. And Dr. T.M. Nair, Taravad Madhavan Nair, who was a medical doctor who was educated in Edinburgh, and then he came back to India, and then he wrote and spoke a lot about labor issues and equal representation of people of all castes in the magazine that he was bringing out, which was interestingly called Antiseptic. And he subsequently became a counselor, and he was very worried about the quality of drinking water and the availability of drinking water in the city. Actually, even at that point in time, you would find that Madras city was suffering from shortage of drinking water. So Dr. Nair was very keen on providing adequate drinking water to the city of Madras. So he was a counselor from the Indian National Congress, and in 1917 he actually blamed the Congress that he lost the elections only because he was not from the Brahmin community. So he broke away from the Congress and joined hands with these two gentlemen, and together they started the South India Liberal Federation, which subsequently came to be known as the Justice Party, because they were bringing out a magazine called Justice. So in 1916, the Justice Party was created, and then in 1920, they participated and won in the elections. And Panaganti Ramaraya Ningar, who was the Raja of Panagal, he became the first chief minister of Justice Party. He became the first chief minister of Tamil Nadu. And it was during his time that it was felt that because of this acute shortage in housing, there needs to be some land that needs to be created in order to provide housing for the people. So what they decided was that they were going to close up the long tank and create that into a residential locality. Now, definitely at that point in time, as you know, there were a lot of arguments, there were a lot of discussions for and against this move, because clearly even then people felt that closing such a huge water body would have very negative effects on the water resources for the city. In fact, Thiruvi Kalyana Sundaranar has even written that he used to drink the water of long tank and bathe in it. So it was kind of like the lifeline of the people who were living in Saidapet and Mambalam and Nungambakam. And this was a very crucial water body for managing the water resources and leveling and balancing the water resources between Adayar and Kuam River. Because the Mylapore tank would get water from the Adayar River when it was flooding there, and it would pass it on to the Kuam River through the Nungambakam Canal. And the same thing, when the Kuam was getting flooded, the water will flow from the Nungambakam tank to the Mambalam tank, so that the water did not get into the residential areas, and it was kind of balanced, and the groundwater levels were maintained. So there was a lot of for and against, and then finally, because of the acute shortage of housing, it was decided to go ahead with the plan to create this Mambalam housing scheme. So if you look here, you would see that this was the plan that was drawn up in 1923, which was approved by the municipal council. And then there were plots that were divided into 1 acre plots, and then there were half acre plots, quarter acre plots, and then 1 acre divided by 8 and 1 acre divided by 12 and so on. So 1 acre is approximately about 18 grounds. So there were 18 ground plots, there were 9 ground plots, there were 4 ground plots, and so on and so forth. So the 4 ground plots were charged at 500 rupees. I'm really proud to say that I am still living in one of those original 4 ground plots. Although, you know, the old house is gone, we have converted it into apartments, but you know, those original 4 ground plots which were created at that time, I still feel grounded to that. And but my grandmother, however, purchased it much later. I mean, it was purchased in the 50s, and our house was constructed around early 60s. But then when it was created, when the layouts were created, the cost was 500 rupees for 4 grounds of land. And you can now you can't even compare it with the costs in T.Nagar, because I think right now it's about 1.5 crores per ground, or it's around 4 to 4.5 crores per 4 ground property at this time. So you can just imagine how much the you know, the scenario has changed. And then 1 acre was at about 2,900 rupees. So there were even people who purchased acres of land to construct their houses on. So considering that even this 500 rupees was a big amount in those days, only the affluent people could afford to purchase these plots. And how did they create this whole T.Nagar and this Mambalam is what you see in this picture. Apologies for the quality of the photograph. What they did is they used this whole area as a dumping ground. So they were dumping debris, they were dumping garbage, and then they were creating these landfills whereby the water was getting drained and it was completely getting into you know, constructible land. It was being converted into land on which buildings could be constructed. So no guesses as to why you know, for many years places like G.N. Chetty Road, and in fact the whole of T.Nagar used to get completely flooded. Lakeview Road used to get completely flooded every time there was rain. You create a settlement over a lake. This is exactly what is expected to happen. So this started happening, but then, you know, the covering up of the water body was not something that happened pretty quickly. Although they started this in 1923, you know, the whole reclamation of land was going on up till the 1970s. So you would find that the first kind of, you know, here is the, you can see the difference. In the first picture, you would see there's the water body, which is a long tank. And in the second picture, you would see that everything has become, you know, land now. So you see from Udayam Theatre right up to Valluvar Kotam, completely it has become a land. So you would find, as I told you, Loyola College, Valluvar Kotam, Mahalingapuram, and then, you know, parts of Puliur village and then Mambalam village were connected to create the old Mambalam, or West Mambalam as it is called today. And the complete T.Nagar area, starting from Tenampet, extending up to Nungambakam High Road on one end and Saidapet on the other, the complete Nandanam and T.Nagar, so the entire area was created from the by covering up the water body, right? So the first kind of you know, thing that was officially inaugurated, the first landmark which was officially inaugurated in T.Nagar after it was created, and of course it was named as Tyagaraja Nagar after Pitti Tyagaraja Chetty, who had passed away by the time the creation of T.Nagar had been completed, since he was the founder of the Justice Party, which was still in power at that time. His name was given to the whole settlement. And Panagal Park, which was constructed at a cost of 10,000 rupees. It was, Panagal Park was about 4.5 acres right in the middle of T.Nagar. And it was constructed at a cost of 10,000 rupees in 1928. And then you can see the red lines. So the Justice Parties eventually became the Dravidian movement and then subsequently became the DMK. So you would find that the construction was done in such a way that Panagal Park is the semicircle that you see in the center. And then there is Usman Road, which forms the base. and then you have GN Chetty Road, you have Tyagaraya Road, and then you have Venkatnarna Road, which form the Rising Sun, which was their party logo, and then subsequently even now the DMK has the Rising Sun as a party. So it was very consciously developed in such a way that the Panagal Park with its adjoining roads formed the Rising Sun. And almost all the roads, all the streets in T.Nagar were named after leaders in the Justice Party. Like as I said, the Tyagaraya Road was named after P.T. Tyagaraya Chetty. Gopati Narayana Swami Chetty Road, which is GN Chetty Road, was named after Gopati Narayana Swami Chetty, who was he was the head of the president of the Madras Corporation. Then you have Thanikachalam Road, which was named after O. Thanikachalam Chetty, who was a lawyer. And then you have various roads like that, Bazula Road, again named after a lawyer. Muhammad Usman, who was a Unani doctor, and he was the home minister during the Raja of Bobili's rule in the Justice Party. He also was the first acting Indian governor of the Madras presidency. So Usman Road is named after him. So you would find that every street in T.Nagar is named after a Justice Party leader. Ari Gowda, who was a Baduga, who was part of the Justice Party, he lends his name to the Arya Gowda Road. Except for the two streets, which was Nadamuni Street and Govindu Street, those two were named after two laborers who lost their lives in creating the drainage for T.Nagar when the underground drainage was being built. Similarly, Chari Street in T.Nagar was named after Dr. Chari, who was probably the only doctor in that area at the time that T.Nagar was created, a practicing doctor. And then you have even British officers who have been given, whose names were used to name roads. Like Maloney Road was named after J. Maloney, who was the president of Madras Corporation. Madley Road and the Madley subway was named after J.W. Madley, who was the father of pipe water supply in Madras. G.T. Bog, Venkatnarana Rao, Vijay Raghavachari, all of them were officers of the Madras Corporation who lent their names to the various roads. Doraisamy Road was named after Dr. Doraisamy, whose eye hospital you can still find near Ranganathan Street, and so on and so forth. Right? So we take a closer look at Panagal Park. So that is the, to your left, you see the statue of the Raja of Panagal. So that is still there. Inside the park, and then in the center photograph shows the radio house in Panagal Park. In those days, not everybody was affluent to have their own radios at home. So what they would do is in the evening, speakers were set up in the Panagal Park, and then people used to come and gather there and listen to the news. So from 5:30 in the evening till about 8:30 in the night, the radio used to play in the radio house. And then people used to come there and listen. And there is still a statue of Nagaya, who is a Telugu actor, which is placed near the radio house. So this is a little bit about Panagal Park. And then, of course, the other major park that was also parallelly created at that time in Venkatnarana Road was the Nadesan Punga or Nadesan Park, which was named after Nadesa Mudaliar, who was also a co-founder of the Justice Party. And then subsequently in the 60s, the Jiva Park in GN Chetty Road also came up. So because it was a planned township, they made sure that there were a lot of open areas, there were playgrounds, there were parks, the roads were all straight, and they were all connecting to the arterial roads. Everything was done when T.Nagar was being created. Now we come to Pondi Bazaar. I mean, in the inauguration, you had mentioned that Pondi Bazaar is the shopper's dream, and then the platform vendors give you anything that you're looking for. So there are two interpretations as to how Pondi Bazaar was named. So although it's popularly believed that WPA Saundra Pandya Nadar, who was a Nadar leader and also part of the Justice Party, it was named after him, because now the police station in Pondi Bazaar is called Saundra Pandyanar Angadi Kaval Nilayam. So it's popularly believed that Pondi Bazaar was named after him, but history says otherwise. The first market in T.Nagar was started with 10 shops by Pondicherry Chokkalinga Mudaliar near Geeta Cafe. I mean, today you have the Geeta Cafe. Somewhere near there, it was started very early in the early 1930s, and it was inaugurated by Gopati Narayana Sami Chetty, whom you see in the picture to the right. And it was called Pondi Bazaar because, one, of course, Chokkalinga Mudaliar belonged to Pondicherry. The second reason why it was called Pondi Bazaar was because goods that were coming in by ships to Pondicherry from France were brought and sold here. Something similar to your Burma Bazaar was operating in Pondi Bazaar, and then subsequently, this was in the late 1920s, and then subsequently in 1933, the Pondi Bazaar market was also started. The market that you still see opposite to the Gita Cafe. In fact, it is where all the Pookada used to be there, and then the lane that has the vegetable shops and then the fruit shops and all that. So that was also created around 1933. And then you still have some vendors who started their shops in Pondi Bazaar in the late 1920s. You still have Nalli Chinnasamy Chetty in the place where it was started in 1928. And Dr. Nalli Kuppuswamy Chetty has also written a book called T.Nagar Andrum Indrum, which is a very popular book where he shares his memories about T.Nagar from the time that he was a little boy and then growing up. Another book that I would recommend for you to read, if you can read Tamil, is a book by the legendary writer Ashoka Mitran sir, called Oru Parvaiyil Chennai Nagaram. So Ashoka Mitran had, I consider myself lucky to have known him while he was alive, and he was a resident of T.Nagar and Mambalam in the 1940s, 50s and 60s. So that book is an extremely interesting book. It's a very small book, about 100 pages, but very interesting anecdotes about the water scarcity in T.Nagar in the 1940s, and then about how the city developed and the various other issues that the closing of the long tank created, which he has written about. So you would also see that there was this Kerala hairdressers, which is still exactly like how it is as you see in the picture, which was created in the late 1920s. And then you also have Naidu Hall. Naidu Hall was something like a revolution in those days, because in the late 1920s and early 1930s, a shop which was selling ladies' undergarments was unheard of. So it was something of a revolution that a shop was opened, and then for the modern ladies, undergarments, ready-made blouses, petticoats, all that which was earlier stitched by the women at home in a very hush-hush manner when they had their periods, was kind of sold in a shop, and people could actually go and purchase them. So these shops continue to remain as a reminder of the creation of T.Nagar. Ranganathan Street, which is a big hub for, of course, Pondi Bazaar and Panagal Park were created or considered as shopping districts for people who are affluent, and the area around Station Road and connecting Mambalam with T.Nagar, that area was for the more middle class and lower middle class people. Ranganathan Street till the 1960s was only a residential area. It was a Nagraharam where there were a lot of houses. There were only the Kumbakonam, Patra Kada, and like 2-3 other shops that were there in Ranganathan Street. And Ashoka Mitran writes in his book that if you are entering from Shiva Vishnu temple and you see the train, you could actually run and catch it, because then it used to be nobody in Ranganathan Street at that time. So you can well imagine how quiet that area would have been. And he says there were foxes that used to come in the streets after 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and the whole place used to become very quiet, and they could actually see dead bodies being burnt in Kanamapet from Ranganathan Street itself. So that is how that area was. And then, of course, the Panagal Park shop and vegetable market, the fruit and vegetable market was started in the early 1970s, which kind of, became the hub for all the cine actors and actresses who were living in T.Nagar to come and make purchases. So the other people kind of used to be afraid, because the cost would be double or triple of what would be the cost in the other shops in Mambalam and Station Road, as I had mentioned. T.Nagar bus terminus, which is very close to your college, used to be the remainder of the long tank. It like what you would call a kutta. It was just a water body which used to get filled up when it was raining, and it used to be dry during the summer season till the early 1960s. In 1962, the bus terminus was built. Till such time, the buses used to stop opposite to Shiva Vishnu Temple and the Sharda Vidyalaya on the main road itself. And the place where the T.Nagar bus stand is and where your college is, and during the rains, it used to be a place where all the buffaloes used to come and bathe in the water. And during the summer and during election times, that is where all the concerts used to happen and the campaigning used to happen and all that. It was only in 1962 that the bus terminus was built there. Usman Road, which is now the hub of stainless steel, gold jewelry, the textile showrooms and all that, as I had mentioned, named after Muhammad Usman, was initially a residential area, and then subsequently it is now, over the times, even I remember seeing a lot of shops and houses and institutions which I saw growing up are no longer there. In fact, the place where Lalita Jewelry is currently used to be the Universal stores, that was the only place which was selling vanilla ice cream in those days, and I think the cost was around 3 rupees when we were in school. And if we accompanied our aunt up to Salam stores on Usman Road to purchase all the provisions, while coming back, she used to get us an ice cream. We had it in the stainless steel cups, and then we used to walk back home. So now Salam stores is also not there, as well as Universal. And there's so many places, Parthasarthi Typewriting Institute, which is a big landmark in Usman Road, where I learned typewriting. That has become some other building. So many things have changed today. The Gandhian institutions in T.Nagar. Now, I'm only talking about the noteworthy Gandhian institutions which came up. Takar Baba Vidyalaya, which is in Venkat Narana Road. Gandhiji had started the Harijan Sevak Sangh in all the states, and Takar Baba, who was a very close associate of Gandhiji, who was of his peer group and who was a very close friend, he had been appointed as the first general secretary of the Harijan Sevak Sangh, and Gandhiji had actually started an industrial training school in Kodambakam, and then when he wanted to expand it, Takar Baba came forward to create this industrial training school in Venkat Narana Road, and in 1946 this was built, and then Gandhiji himself had laid the foundation stone to the new building. If you have an opportunity, please go and take a look at the Gandhi Study Center and also the Vinoba Museum that is there in Takar Baba Vidyalaya. The koluru or the kottu with which you kind of install the foundation stone, which had been used by Gandhiji, is still there. 10,000 books, I think, or more relating to the life of Gandhiji, a very rare collection which had been terribly damaged during the 2015 floods. Most of it, I think, has been renovated after that. Now that is also there. And then there is a working women's hostel, and they give industrial training like carpentry, plumbing, electrician, all that for vulnerable and underprivileged youth till now. So this has been there from 1946 onwards as an institution which is still practicing Gandhian principles. And then, of course, the Dakshin Bharat Hindi Prachar Sabha. It was originally started in 1918 by Mahatma Gandhi with an aim to propagate Hindi in the southern states, and he had actually appointed his son Devdas Gandhi as the Pracharak, the first Pracharak of Hindi Prachar Sabha. And then in 1927, Dakshin Bharat Hindi Prachar Sabha became an independent organization, and Mahatma Gandhi was its president till he died. So till the last days of his life, he continued to be the president of the Sabha. Originally, it was in Georgetown, then in Mylapore, Triplicane. And in 1936, it was brought to the Hindi Prachar Sabha Road, the place in T.Nagar where it currently is, in a 7-acre compound. And then it was opened in 1936 by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who was then the president of Indian National Congress. And of course, in 2018, the centenary year was also celebrated. You can see the handwritten letter of Gandhiji in the stamp that was released on the account of the centenary celebrations. And Gandhiji had even come for the Silver Jubilee celebrations in 1946. Now, on one hand, we talk about propagation of Hindi. On the other hand, we also need to talk about the anti-Hindi agitations that happened in T.Nagar and in Mambalam. So 1950 was a time that when, there were huge protests that burst out across Tamil Nadu because of the anti-Hindi call that was raised by C.N. Annadurai. And we had young man, we had 5 people giving up their lives, burning themselves to death in protest of like they felt that Hindi was being forced upon the people of Tamil Nadu. And one young man who was a corporation worker committed suicide by immolating himself right next to what is the Doraisamy subway currently. The subway, of course, came up in early 1970s, but then this gentleman gave up his life in 1950. He immolated himself in Rangarajapuram, very close to the subway. And so the Doraisamy subway is not Doraisamy subway in reality. It's just a subway on Doraisamy Road. The actual name is Tyagi Sivalingam subway. Even now, if you kind of slow down as you're going down the Doraisamy subway, you would see there's a board which says Tyagi Sivalingam subway, and the Greater Chennai Corporation website also refers to it as Tyagi Sivalingam subway. When the Aranganathan subway was built, connecting Ashok Nagar with T.Nagar, Aranganathan, another gentleman, at least Sivalingam was a young man, unmarried, bachelor, working in the Corporation of Madras. Aranganathan was a married man, he was a teacher. He again gave up his life in the anti-Hindi agitations, and his name was given to the subway when it was constructed there. And I already mentioned the Madley subway, named after J.W. Madley, who was the father of pipe water supply in Madras. Now, before these subways were created, Mambalam was pretty much cut off from the rest of Madras. It was very difficult because up to the 1960s, even the cantilever gates were not there. The railway tracks used to be permanently closed, and people had to wait for hours for it to open, and the only mode of transport was the horse carts or the jatkas. And so because of this, because of lack of medical facilities in Mambalam, there used to be women who were about to deliver, women in labor who used to wait at the railway gate and even lose their lives or lose the baby because the gate was not opening. That is when T.T. Krishnamachari was on an election campaign, that the people of Mambalam approached him with the problem that there was no medical facility in Mambalam, and because the railway gates were permanently closed, there were serious loss of life and major issues. And so that is when the public health center was started. And then subsequently, of course, the cantilever gates were created in Doraisamy, in Tyagi Sivalingam subway, and in Madley subway and Aranganathan subway. And then, of course, subsequently, the 3 subways were built. And of course, now the Rangarajapuram bridge has also been created, which is a very recent addition. The T.Nagar Social Club was created in 1935, and that was probably the only restaurant that was available at that time, which served Kumbakonam degree coffee. And I think at that time they called it the Tanjavur degree coffee. And writer Ashokamitran says it is much better than any coffee you would get in a 5-star hotel. So the T.Nagar Social Club, of course, has been completely renovated now, and it still functions, and they do not admit any new members. Interestingly, in 1944 itself, the T.Nagar Ladies Club in Raman Street was also created because they wanted the modern women, the affluent women, the Telugu women and the Tamil women who were in the houses that were built in T.Nagar to have a recreation club, play tennis, and then, kind of socialize. So that was also created in 1944. Unfortunately, I do not have a picture of the T.Nagar Ladies Club. Yeah, temple. So probably when T.Nagar was created, the only temple that was there was the Mupataman temple. The Mupataman temple did not have a temple. It was only a puttu, which was an ant hill. And then there was a peepal tree and a neem tree, which was kind of covering this anthill. So it was considered holy, and then people used to go and worship there. Then over time, the devotees decided to construct a temple, and then it became a popular temple. And then because it was overlooking the road junctions, it came to be called the Mupataman coil. So that was the earliest in the T.Nagar area. Then subsequently the Shiva Vishnu coil, which was until the 1960s, Shiva Vishnu temple was only like a Grama temple. And then subsequently, of course, it was modernized, and then the big Gopuram was built, and it's still there on Usman Road. Agastya temple, which is very popular with the movie stars. In fact, even Amitabh Bachchan is a frequent, every time he is in Madras, he visits the Agastya temple, because when he was punched by Puneet Isar accidentally in an accident, and then his spleen and liver was ruptured, and he was in a very critical condition. Apparently somebody told him to pray to the Agastya temple, and then when he got cured, he came here and worshipped. So that was a residential house originally, and it belonged to a gentleman, Josier. It belonged to a astrologer called Sundara Mudaliyar, and he used to read all this Agastya Nadi. So he was worshipping Agastya and his wife Lopamudra, and that is how then subsequently it became a temple, and it was open to the public, and it's still there. Of course, the most popular temple in T.Nagar, which attracts the highest number of footfall, is the TTD temple in Venkatnarana Road, which serves as the extension counter of the Tirupati Devasthanam in Tirupati. Bani Mahal, again, it was created as Tyaga Brahma Gana Sabha, which was the hub for all the music kacheris and the dance and the drama and everything to happen. Mooted to a great extent by Chittur Nagaya, who's a Telugu actor. T.Nagar, of course, had a huge population of Telugu people, and then of course the Telugu actors were all there. N.T. Ramarao was in Bazula Road, and then you have Dasari Narayana Rao, Vijayasanti in Parthasarathipuram, which is off North Usman Road. Then you had Savitri in Habibullah Road. Nagaya was there. You had so many other people. Banu Chandar was in Nair Road. Chiranjeevi still has a house in Habibullah Road. And then Rama Naidu and Venkatesh and Rana still in Valmiki Street, and you can go on and on. So it was started, Vani Mahal was started in 1945, much through the efforts of Chittur Nagaya and several other people who were kind of part of it. The first schools, of course, very interestingly, Holy Angels Convent, which was started in Georgetown but then moved. The land was purchased in 1933, and then the school was started here in 1935 as Our Lady's Montessori, which is still the name of the primary section of Holy Angels Convent. A very interesting trivia about Holy Angels is that during the Second World War, the Holy Angels Convent was evacuated. The nuns, the teachers, the students and the housekeepers were all sent to Palamaner, and the school was used as an air raid precaution headquarters, and it also functioned as the High Court and the Law College during that time. The Ramakrishna School was also started in 1932, and then the main school was started in Pondibazar in 1932. Subsequently, Sharda Vidyalaya across the road, and then you have so many branches. There's one in Bazula Road, there is one in Burkitt Road, there's another Sharda Vidyalaya in Usman Road. So all these schools were subsequently started in and around T.Nagar. And then now, of course, you have so many other schools in T.Nagar and other educational institutions in T.Nagar. So I'm only touching upon the early ones. So as I mentioned, because T.Nagar was it was an affluent locality, it was close to Kodambakam and Vadapayani, where all the studios and the recording units were. Several movie stars and personalities chose to live in T.Nagar. MGR, of course, his house in Arcot Mudli Street, which was his office. It was a place where he continued to come every day till his death. Even now, the MGR Memorial House has a museum. It is interestingly a private museum. The costs of running that museum are completely managed by the MGR Trust. He had created it deliberately as a private museum because he wanted it to continue to exist even after his time. And people who were working with him when he was an actor and subsequently a politician, they continue to govern the place. If you haven't had an opportunity to see the MGR house, please do take a look. It's a very, very interesting place, and which has so much of memorabilia associated with his life. So the bandage that he wore when he was shot in the throat, people signing in blood, asking him to start a political party. The tiger that he he fought with in Nadimepen, and subsequently he maintained till the end of his life, which has been stuffed. All those things are there. The car that he had used during his lifetime. Jayalalitha, of course, prior to building Veda Nilayam in Poes Garden, used to stay in Sivanyanam Street. The house is still there, and as you can see, Jay Deepa, I mean, her brother Jayakumar used to live there, and then now her niece Deepa stays there. I mentioned N.T. Ramarao's house in Basula Road. As a young girl, I remember going up to the terrace of my house, and I would see several buses waiting in the morning to take a look of NTR when he came to the balcony, and they would all shout Devudu when he appeared on the balcony. Such a beautiful bungalow, which is now completely dilapidated. You would find that the doors and windows are broken. People just jump over and go and drink there. It's a pity that nobody is taking any effort to protect that monument. Of course, Annai Illam in Bog Road, which is Shivaji Ganeshan's house, which is still very well maintained. Several other actors, Manorama in Neelakanta Mehta Street, there was, Tangavelu in Tirumalai Pillai Road, and N.S. Krishnan near Tenampet. So I can go on and on to talk about Kannamba was in T.Nagar. So several people who were staying in T.Nagar belonging to the movie industry. And of course, Kamaraj, who was the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, his house in Tirumalai Pillai Road, which continues to be the memorial house, which is not as well maintained as the MGR house. You can still, of course, visit it. And Rajaji's house on Basula Road, which is still being maintained by his family, although they've converted it into apartments. So all these people stayed in T.Nagar. Now, this is the original housing scheme when the slum clearance was happening in Mambalam and in T.Nagar. Now, it was all good that houses were created and the whole settlement of T.Nagar came up, and then it created connectivity to the city, and then it became seamless that, the city expanded. All that was fine. But then what was happening is, as I was mentioning earlier, the water body was not covered all at the same time. So little by little, as it was getting covered and the tenements were being built, there was acute water shortage because there was no other alternative source of water for this area. So acute water shortage in West Mambalam, and because the stagnation of water without drainage, or there was no free flowing water, there was a big problem of elephantiasis. I still remember when I was in school, there used to be terrible mosquitoes in West Mambalam. There used to be, all the cycle rickshaw drivers used to have either elephant legs or elephant hands because of this problem of water stagnation. Malaria used to be a common thing in Mambalam, and it was only in the 1970s that the complete reclamation was done. The lake area and of course, the Valluvar Kotam was constructed. So till then, there were severe public health hazards because of the creation of this settlement, and of course, acute water scarcity. Mambalam continues to be in that situation. There's acute water scarcity during the summer, and there's severe water logging during the rainy seasons, even now. But then, that was the negative, or I would say the fall side of the urbanization. And then this is how Pondi Bazaar looked like in the 80s and the 90s, and this is how it looks now. Complete, the pedestrian plaza that has been created, the modernization of the roads, and then the parking facilities that have been created, all that is fine. But then you will also find that various landmarks have disappeared. I mentioned about the shops that I had known and visited, and had been part of Sugan, where I used to buy all my school uniforms, which was there right next to where the Lalita jewelry is. And that's disappeared. N.S. Ramanathan Chetty, who was probably the first jeweler to start a jewelry shop in Usman Road, that's gone. Then all the theaters that were there, Rajakumari Theatre, which is now the Big Bazaar in Pondi Bazaar, and then Krishnaveni Theatre right opposite to the T.Nagar bus terminus, that's gone. Sun Theatre, which used to screen all the English movies, which is at the end of G.N. Chetty Road, just before the Gemini flyover. That has become Sun Plaza. The last theatre to close its shutters was Theatre Nagesh, which was constructed by the famous actor Nagesh, who lived in West Marblem for a long time. Actress Sharada used to live in Chari Street. I mean, I can go on and on because I've lived here all my life. So Theatre Nagesh has also become a wedding hall now. So we've lost a lot of, I would say, memories of the T.Nagar that existed. Marbalam had its own theatres, which is National Theatre on Lakeview Road. That's completely been demolished. Of course, the Srinivasa Theatre is there. When I conducted the Heritage Walk for the previous year, they were still screening movies. But this year, in 2019, when I did the Heritage Walk, they were no longer screening movies. I really don't know when that will be converted into an apartment or a shopping complex. So again, the two major playgrounds, we are constantly in the threat, of course development is good, but then we are also constantly in the threat of losing all these landmarks that are around us. We already had a big threat for Panagal Park, which Metro wanted to take it on at the time the metro stations were being constructed, but then the Panagal family went to court and they said that they obtained a stay that should not be done, because already Tirvika Punga in Shenoy Nagar is completely lost because of the metro construction. Public can no longer can access the park in any which ways. The two major playgrounds that we have in T.Nagar, Somasundaram ground, which has really been the feeding ground. It's like Shivaji Park in Mumbai. Somasundaram ground can be called as the feeding ground for all the creative cricketing talents of the city. We have excellent facilities there, and all the great cricketers that are now playing or have played Ranji Trophy, first class cricket, IPL, they all grew up playing in Somasundaram ground. And the corporation playground in Venkatnana Road, which sees a lot of basketball tournaments happening regularly. They have had constant threats of them being taken over for either parking, for creating parking, or for metro, or for construction activities, as the city and its population has been growing. So my humble request to all of you listening here is, please start looking around your local heritage. Please start looking around your environment. Start appreciating and documenting all the old things that you look around you. In fact, when I was having a chat with Dr. Rajshri some time ago, she was saying anything above 50 years can be considered as heritage, which I really think is a very, very valid statement, because as I said, I'm 50 years old. Whatever I saw growing up, I no longer see a lot of things that were part of my childhood. So, and now that you have a heritage club which is really active and it is doing really well, my humble request to the heritage club and all its members and to the Center of Excellence is that you should probably do projects which documents all the antiquity around you, documents all the even the private photographs and other things. The house that I was born and brought up in was called Sri Sailam. As I told you, it was a four-ground bungalow. Unfortunately, we don't have even a single photograph of the house. The house was pulled down in 2000 to construct an apartment. But even now, when we cousins meet for any occasion, we keep asking each other, do any of you have pictures of the old house? Because it's such a beautiful bungalow. And it's completely, there's nothing to show our children or our grandchildren. This is how the house that we played in, the jackfruit tree and the mango tree and the guava tree and the beehive and everything that was, the big well that was there, everything that we played with, and it was part of our growing up. There is nothing to show as documentation to our children. I would really urge that if the Heritage Club can do during Madras Week or during any other time, you kind of send out a call to the residents of Mambalam to share their personal photographs and documents and collections that they have in their own houses, which probably is of no value to them, or they do not know the importance and significance of those things, and then start documenting everything. That will be something that you can pass on to the next future generations, and it will be a most invaluable, priceless gift that can be given to T.Nagar, especially at a time when T.Nagar is really struggling to survive and come back. I share the sentiments of Dr. Rajshri in saying that we truly hope very soon we will be out of this pandemic, that we can go out and start doing heritage walks and walk around our locality and start documenting and creating all these evidences that should be shared, stored and shared for future generations. Thank you so much. I'm open to questions, if any.
It was a very interesting session. We learned a lot about T.Nagar, its history, geographical aspects, and the contrast of economy, which was in then T.Nagar versus now. You just took us on a journey from the then T.Nagar with the T.Nagar which we see it now. Thank you so much, ma'am. So now we have a few questions.
Sure.
The first question is, which was the first temple in T.Nagar?
I think I had already answered it in my presentation. So, the Mopataman Koil in its original form was what was being worshipped when T.Nagar was being created. Subsequently, Shiva Vishnu temple, and then, of course, Agastya temple, which is about 60, 70 years old now, and then the TTD temple, they all came up. Alayaman Koil, of course, was on the other end, but I haven't taken it into account in T.Nagar because it was in existence as part of Tenampet, which was Tenampet, which was a coconut grove at that point in time. So I have not counted it as part of T.Nagar.
Thank you, ma'am. So the second question is, where all did the tram lines go across T.Nagar in the early times?
Sorry?
Tram lines.
No, I don't think the tram lines went through T.Nagar. I mean, unless I'm mistaken, because the trams were mostly operating in the big roads, which was like Mount Road and then, Egmore. Those areas were where the trams were covering. In T.Nagar, as far as I know, there weren't any trams. Definitely, there were double-decker buses. They were, the initial double-decker buses, the white buses. You can Google them up. I did not have a picture to share in this presentation. So the double-decker buses were there. And then there were the Jatkas, and then there were subsequently the cars came up and all that. But I don't think there were trams in T.Nagar as far as I know.
Okay. The third question is, which was considered the main or center of the city back then?
Mount Road, and then of course, see, Georgetown and Blacktown were Madras city. Georgetown was where all the Britishers lived, and the Blacktown was where everybody else, the support services to Georgetown were kind of, staying. And then from there, they annexed all the other villages near it. So Tiruvetriur, Egmore, Perambur, Nungambakam, Veperi, and then, Valsaravakam, Virugambakam, which were all small villages, were all annexed. And then with the creation of T.Nagar, Mambalam and then Saidapet and whatever was there on this side, Tirvanur, everything got connected to the city of Madras.
Wow. So next, there's an interesting question in the comment box. Can you say a few words about the connection of the lyricist with like Kannadasan to T.Nagar?
Yeah, so Kannadasan originally, he stayed in different places, and it was much later in life that he purchased the house in Kannadasan Street, which is named after him, which is right next to the Venkatnarana Road Corporation Playground. That road, the house is still there, and his family stays there, and then they also run a restaurant from that house. So Kannadasan, yes, for a later part of his life, he was a resident of T.Nagar in Kannadasan, which street is named after him as Kannadasan Street, right?
Wow. The next question is, are there any specific film song praising T.Nagar?
The city of Madras has been covered in a lot of movies from the 70s and 80s. Different parts of the city have been covered. I don't think there is a specific song or a scene that is praising T.Nagar. Of course, there is one movie, the name of which I forget, but you can look it up on YouTube, wherein, there is this gentleman who is actually living in Mylapore. He's a doctor who's living in Mylapore. and he wants to move to a quieter place. So he says கோடம்பாக்கம்னு ஒரு கிராமம் இருக்கு, அதனால நான் அங்க போயிடலான்னு இருக்கேன். புதுசா ஒரு கோடம்பாக்கம்னு ஒரு கிராமம் வந்திருக்கு. So actually there was Puliur village, and then there was Mambalam village, and then subsequently Kodambakkam was created, and then the entire area which is now the West Mambalam, which is between the Puliur village, which is from Arcade Road right up to Postal Colony, that was all brought up by closing the long tank. And so this gentleman says he is staying in Mylapore, which is kind of, the town of Madras. And from there, he wants to come to a village, which is called Kodambakkam. So there in that scene, they show the Kodambakkam railway station. They show the Mambalam railway station, which are all, very rustic and very old in those days. So, yeah.
So the
Very
next
nice
question.
Very interesting questions. Yeah.
How did T.Nagar become one of the important trade centers in Chennai?
See, basically, when the people have the purchasing power, naturally, the shops start growing around it. Initially, all the people who had the money to buy things were staying around Georgetown and Blacktown, and that is why Broadway and Pukada and all that, NSC Bose Road, that was a big commercial hub. Then, when T.Nagar was created and people who were affluent started coming here, then Usman Road slowly and Pondi Bazaar slowly started developing as the commercial hub. Velachery was a big lake, and even when I was working there in 2005, the bypass road was, it was just something that was being developed at that point in time. That again is a lake reclamation area. But today you see every single brand is available in Velachery because more and more IT professionals have gone there. Same with Old Mahabalipuram Road and same with ECR. More and more people with money go and live there. It automatically converts itself into a commercial hub.
Yes. So the next question is, why was a road named after British engineer Mr. Coates in T.Nagar? Did he live there?
No, he did not live there. As I mentioned, they were all corporation officials, and Justice Party was pro-British. They had kind of, agreed to support the British, which is why they were allowed to contest in the elections and then, participate in the government. And although the Raja of Panagal was the chief minister of Tamil Nadu, the actual power was still with the British only. But then, because of their gratitude to the British and because of their allegiance to the British, they gave names of the corporation officials to different streets, Coates Road being one of them. As I mentioned, Bogue Road, Coates Road, Maloney Road, Madley Road, Burkitt Road, all those were named after the British officials.
Okay. So the next question is, was there any reason for T.Nagar becoming almost a complete retail hub while Mambalam became more of a residential area?
Yeah, the money part, because Mambalam was only, Mambalam had only people of the middle class and the lower middle class. They were mostly cooks or priests. Those were the people who were staying in. Yeah, my mic has gone on mute. Yeah. So because of that, obviously, the kind of shops that you still find in Station Road, which is the Aplam, Vada, Murga, those kind of vegetables and other things, that were the things that could be purchased by the people who are in Mambalam. And definitely, all the affluent things were the ones that were being sold in T.Nagar. And Devendra saris, even in my own street where I live now, there used to be a mami who was selling Devendra saris, because those were the saris that would be purchased by the mamis who are living in my area. Whereas Nalli will be selling all these silk saris. So it's purely the question of affordability and the kind of products that people are looking to buy.
Okay. So the last question, what was T.Nagar called? Is there a specific name to T.Nagar before it got its name T.Nagar or Tyagaraja Nagar?
It was called Long Tank.
Okay. So thank you, ma'am, for patiently answering our questions. Now I request Dr. Rajshri, ma'am, to say a few words.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much, Padma Priya. That was a very, very quick but exhaustive recap that you have done about T.Nagar. So, just one or two points to add. One, of course,
Sure.
our students enjoyed your heritage walks, and we are really looking forward to having more of the same. That was one. And the other one was when you mentioned about this T.Nagar project. We are doing this project in college. In fact, we were this. Idea of having an entire session on T-Nagar is in part of it, in the sense that we will be reaching out to you. And we want to do it, as you mentioned, in fact, contact the old timers, take down their memories, and put it down in documented form. So I wanted to add here specifically because our secretary, as also our principal, we have an executive director as well. They are all very keen that we make it into a big project because, as I said, our secretary is particular about reaching out to the community that we are part of. He says we are here as Shashonians because T-Nagar is giving us that kind of leverage. So definitely we'll reach out to you for that. And just a point that I would like to add is, in fact, my grandfather was one of the earliest engineers for the British Raj. Of course, he was posted for a long time in Myanmar, in Burma, in Rangoon. And when he came back here, one of his very close friends was Mr. Loganatha Mudaliar, who bought the first plot, in a sense, in Coates Road. So, number one Coates Road, I think, belongs to him. So, they used to say that in the early part of the century, from T-Nagar, which was considered as outskirts to the main city, they could see large parts of the city because nothing was there in between. But another part of the city was completely filled with trees. And as you said, there were quite a few wild animals who used to move around at that time. So there are some very good memories from what they have shared. And I think we can all add up to the stories that you have been telling us about T-Nagar. Of course, stories with all authenticated facts. So, of course, the official vote of thanks will be given by our Heritage Club staff coordinator, but I just wanted to add a few points to that. So, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
obliging me as soon as I mentioned about the Heritage Week. So,
Thank
over
you
to
so much,
Sai
ma'am. It's
Shruti
always
and
a
to
pleasure to be part of your activities because I see the genuine interest and commitment to heritage, especially
students are.
local heritage. Yeah, from your heart. I mean, it's something that the girls. Every time I do the heritage walk, also I see that resonating in the girls as well, and it's a complete pleasure to be doing this with you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Our pleasure, and we'll keep in touch, definitely.
Sure. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, a feedback form link will be sent in the chat box. I request everyone to kindly fill it and share your valuable feedback. Now, I request Ms. R. Subha Jasmine, Assistant Professor, Department of English Literature and Heritage Staff Coordinator, to propose the vote of thanks.
Ma'am, can I propose the vote of thanks? Okay, ma'am. Um, Last year, I met Padma Priya Bhaskaran, ma'am, for the first time for the Heritage Walk. And indeed, the tour was actually really very good, ma'am. And this year it was a virtual tour, I can tell. So far, like we thought that T.Nagar is just an affluent commercial hub. So behind that commercial hub, there's a lot of rich hidden history. So we thoroughly enjoyed. But yes, as Rajshri ma'am mentioned, you were like very fast and exhaustive. You know that virtual tour journey was when you were explaining the places. So wish we would have had more time to actually know about T-Nagar and its rich heritage actually behind T-Nagar, Mambalam, regarding that Saidapet areas. So indeed, it was a very informative session, ma'am. Definitely, I think younger generations, our girls, and the other viewers, definitely they would have actually they would have known more about T-Nagar through this virtual tour because we generally think T-Nagar is just a shopping area, but beyond shopping, it has a heritage of its own. So through your virtual tour, actually, indeed, people would have understood that our viewers would have known about T Nagar as of now. So, on behalf of our management members, Principal Madam, Vice Principal Madam, Center of Excellent Art and Culture, and Heritage Club, I indeed thank you for your for sparing your valuable time and telling us and giving us more information regarding T Nagar and its age-old heritage and history. Thank you so much, ma'am. So, taking this as a forum, I would also thank our COE interns and Heritage Club interns because without you girls, I don't think so. The day 4 would have got completed. So your support is actually phenomenal, girls. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the viewers who are actually streaming into this and giving your valuable suggestions, posting your questions. Thank you so much, and thanks for the technical assistant team, Tamarai ma'am. Thank you so much because there are a lot of technical assistants who are behind this. So I thank one and all who is actually being part of this Heritage Week celebration, the webinar series. Thank you all. Good night. Over to you, Shai Shruti. Sai Shruti, over to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We learned a lot of information about T-Nagar from this session, and looking forward to seeing you all on day 5 of the celebration series. See you soon. Have a good night.